State Board of Education has passed a new resolution on teaching race in the classroom. This has been a really big talking point for some school districts, even legislators, after Governor Kemp sent a letter to the board opposing critical race theory. Let's turn it over now to Francesca Amaker, joining us to talk more about this. So the resolution doesn't specifically talk about critical race theory, but still, it did not lack controversy.
It's a lot of controversy. This is a very intense topic, Aisha, and 11 board members voted in favor, 2 against, and those were 2 of the 3 black members of the board that voted against it. Now here's Kenneth Mason with a little bit more on why he voted against this resolution.
The statement, when I read it, made me feel like I didn't belong because it excused the existence of racism.
Now, the resolution focuses on how educators teach certain concepts. It says things like an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is not inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive. It also says racism and slavery are deviations from American founding principles. Now, Governor Brian Kemp applauded the vote on Twitter and called critical race theory a dangerous anti-American ideology. But the resolution doesn't specifically say anything about critical race theory, and it does not change anything that children are being taught right now, although it could be a baseline for future rules. And of course, Aisha, people on either side have a lot to say about this resolution. As we've mentioned, the president of the Georgia Association of Educators even called it a political overreaction. So we'll be following all of this on 11alive.com.
All right, Francesca, thank you. A real uncomfortable topic for a lot of people.